July 4th messages are typically straightforward celebrations of our nation's independence, talking about fireworks and barbecues and even mattress sales. This year, I think, warrants something a bit more nuanced. First, we should take a moment to think about our late colleague, Commissioner Mark Samuelin, who was lost to an unexpected illness just last week. While foremost it is a personal loss to his family and his life partner, Laura, it is also a great loss to our city. Mark had so many of the qualities you look for in public servants. He was hardworking, smart, engaged, and empathetic. And the fact that he directed his formidable intellect in service of our community is something for which we should all be grateful. But for me, I will always remember him as uncompromisingly civil. He treated everyone with respect, never let a heated moment get the best of him, never engaged in personal attacks. While in most places civility has become the exception, for Mark Samuelin, it was his rule. We will miss him. Moving on to July 4th, when it's time to celebrate our nation. Honestly, it feels a little different this year. Our country, at least in my lifetime, has never been more divided. People literally live in different worlds, listening to different news channels, believing different facts, and ultimately not just disagreeing, but hating those living in the other bubble, uninterested in reaching out in any way. And our institutions and leaders are not helping. The recent Supreme Court pronouncement diminishing a woman's province over her own body is the first time in my lifetime that a constitutional right was actually taken away. And the ongoing hearings in Washington are only confirming that the guide rails of our democracy seem absent and that our nation feels almost untethered from the principles and pole stars that seem to always guide us. So how should we celebrate our nation in this moment of such great distress and division? For me, this is precisely the time to celebrate who we are, but in a way that recognizes these challenges so that we may reaffirm who we seek to be and what we value. Now, I typically commence city events by playing the song America the Beautiful, because I believe it more aptly reflects our national experience, even more so than the Star-Spangled Banner. When the song was written in 1893 by Catherine Bates, as she hiked Pikes Peak in Colorado, she penned it as a poem. The line in her first verse, "God shed his grace on thee," almost suggests that America is divinely chosen, that we are great as a matter of God's will. Of course, at the time, women didn't have the right to vote, and African Americans were still largely treated as chattel. So to understand the point Bates was actually making, you have to read her poem in its entirety. It's not about the greatness of America. It is about the promise of an America that can be great. While she marvels at the physical and topography of the fruited plains and the Purple Mountains' majesty, Bates also recognizes that our country is not without its blemishes. My favorite verse, "America, America, God mend thine every flaw. Confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law." Catherine Bates doesn't view America as intrinsically great. Great is something you have to work at, because nations, like people, will sometimes surrender to lesser instincts, sometimes take a route less than exceptional. The America Catherine Bates celebrates is a nation that resists those instincts, choosing to seek higher ground, an America that leans towards virtue, because no matter how much we celebrate affluence, power, and celebrity, we should revere character, that believes it's not the strength of our military that makes us great, but that we seek to deploy that strength righteously. A nation that recognizes our wealth isn't nearly as important as our charity. Or as Bates herself once explained, America's greatness must be crowned with goodness. Our nation feels very much like a house divided today, as our public spaces seem totally dominated by angry and divisive voices, rather than the Mark Samuelins of the world. But Bates had it right. She celebrated a nation that sought to be the best version of itself, that believed success should be noble and gains divine. This is the America I celebrate. Have a great 4th of July.